Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Christel Crawford Show. We made it. We made it through another week. We made it through another moment. Here we are again together. I am live on Instagram and Facebook again. This time I might actually save the live to Instagram, which would mean you get to watch it. Last week I was in such a rush doing something. Hello, Vashima. Hi, guys. Anyway, I didn't save it. So, this thing about being in business, you just learn as you go. Hi, Claire. How you doing? Hey, everybody. Well, let's get right to it, shall we? So I called this week's episode, The Lost Art of Spirit Work. What gifts more, engaging or avoiding? Hi. Hello, Elena. Hi, Maxine. So today was day 4 of an incredible Talk to the Entities beginning class, and I have another one coming up this weekend, and if you're listening to this somewhere in the future, I'm sure I have more. This class has been one of the greatest gifts I've ever given myself, and not in the way that I thought. And the thing that's been coming to the forefront more and more and more is that these are not just tools that we're giving you to play with, although you can. They're not just tools that we're giving you to have an easier life with everything you're aware of, although they will do that. This is a conversation about what are you? What are you? What artist are you? What are you truly aware of? What are you truly capable of? And that conversation seems to be transforming people's lives in a way that I've never seen any conversation transform. And so my curiosity with you is, have you chosen yet to engage, or are you still avoiding? Now, one of my favorite things about the class of Talk to the Entities is that every single thing that we talk about in this class will give you tools to deal with the spirit world. And, if you haven't seen any of my former videos, go watch them. Go to christeljoycrawford.com/confused truths, and you will get a 5-video series on tools to deal with the entities that you think are pain or whatever. But where was I going with that? Oh, I'm losing my points today. But the bigger conversation is, what are we in the restoration of? Oh, and I know where I was going with that. So does it gift more to engage, or does it gift more to avoid? Well, the thing is, whatever you engage with is going to get greater. Whatever you avoid is going to devolve. Whatever you engage with is going to evolve, and whatever you disengage with is going to devolve. So you can extrapolate that to anything. If you disengage with the spirit world, that will devolve your life. If you engage with the spirit world, that will evolve your life. If you disengage with money, that will devolve your life. If you engage with money, that will evolve your life. If you disengage with your business, that will devolve your life. If you engage with your business, that will evolve your life, right? So I think that's one of my favorite things about everything in Access, is that you can take one piece of it and extrapolate it out to your entire life. But I've never seen a class gift people that awareness so quickly. And here's why. Because spirit work is work that has to be done from being, and from knowing, and from perceiving, and from receiving. Now, the same is true of money and business, but it seems like in money and business, we sort of have different ideas of how that can work. You can't actually create money from the conclusion of money. You have to actually be money. You can't actually generate your business from doing. You have to be in business. So same thing, same. But for some reason with entities and spirits and, ghosts and however you want to label them, this work has gotten so mashed to the side, so mashed up in pop culture that it's almost been trivialized to something that's meant for movies instead of a reality that we live with each and every day. So what if your world included all beings? Not just the beings in the body, but also included you? What if you actually had the richness that comes from inclusion instead of the dis-ease that comes from exclusion? And everything that is, times a godzillion, will you destroy and create it all? Right, wrong, good, bad, pop, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. So look at this for yourself. In the areas where you have dis-ease, are you engaging or disengaging? So I can really look at my finances, for example. It's a great example of this. Literally, it's just so literal. That's all. It's just so literal. It's like literally when I start to put my attention on like getting my taxes done, guess what gets done? My taxes. When I put my attention on like creating a system for me to have like financial longevity, a sustainable financial future, money in the future, I have that. When I put my attention on being money, cultivating that, studying that, like I become money. It's weird. It's like the moment I put my attention on something, it changes and I become it. So is the dis-ease that you may be having around your abilities with the spirit world coming from your unwillingness yet to engage with it? And if you were willing to engage with these energies that maybe you've either done fear around, or you've done doubt around, or you've done avoidance, or whatever it is you've been doing around them, would your life get greater? Yes or no? So what would you have to add to your life in order to have more of you? I remember the very first time that Shannon said, called this the lost art of spirit work. And I've never forgotten that. It did something for me in that moment that almost nothing else in Access did. It gave this universe of unseen beings, of entities, of demons, of all these things that we are always aware of that shows up in energetic whatevers, this dignity that I had never considered. Like I'd never even looked at myself. I hadn't looked at myself as an artist. I'd looked at myself as a struggling, suffering person who needed some tools, right? But when she said that, I was like, oh, I'm an artist. Oh yeah. And so when you look at something as an art form, right? Like if you look at when even doctors or medicine or whatever, like everything that you get into becomes a practice, right? Like if you are studying to be a doctor, it's the practice of medicine. If you're studying to be a professor, sorry, Instagram's going batty on me. Like if you're studying to be a professor, like you practice that as you teach. Every single thing in our world almost is like geared up to be like you get some education and then you go out into the real world and you do an internship or you do a thing and so you learn more, and it's the study and it's the ongoing practice of that thing. I haven't really heard that applied though to consciousness, except I started to hear it because Gary kept saying, well, you got to practice this and you got to study this and you got to practice this and you got to study this. And he's like, you don't know how to choose. You're going to have to practice choosing. You don't know how to do this. You're going to have to practice this. And so I started to see the theme of like, oh, if I actually want to have all of me, all of my abilities, if I want to be an artist of consciousness, if I want to be an artist of spirit work, I'm going to have to actually study and practice. And so I did. I started doing that. And that's actually what has changed my life probably the most in the last 2 years is I started really studying, like applying, living, breathing, eating, applying the tools we get right in Foundation. 10 keys to total freedom, the distractor implants, the projections, expectations, separations, judgments, and rejections, the who does it belong to, the interesting point of view, like all that stuff that kind of after you hear it for a while, you kind of go, yeah, give me a better tool. No. If you become an artist with those tools, if you live those, if you breathe those, if you eat those, if you function from those, your whole life changes. And then we've got entities, which for some reason we haven't actually like included, I dare you to, as a core part of everything, as like another lung, as like, entities is like frosting on the cake. Nope, it's the cake. Like there's a whole strata of beings that have gotten disincluded from our world that affect us all the time. From the mega beings to the mini beings, to the people entities, to the light beings, to the nature spirits, to the demons, to all this, there's a whole universe of beings out there. And they're there whether we engage with them or not. But when you choose to not engage with them, does that make your life greater? Yes or no? When you choose to not engage, are you evolving your life or are you devolving your life? So which is greater? What gifts you more? Does engaging gift you more or does avoiding gift you more? Now, I know when I talk about it, it kind of seems really obvious, but this is one of those things that I've had to, in every little area of my life, get present with, right? Like I've had to get present with this with money. I've had to get present in this with my relationship with myself and with another person. I've had to get present here with my body. Like, this is a conversation that continues to gift. So it's just something it's not one of those things that you're just going to look at once and then it will be over. It would be like, okay, so I've been asking to live the energy of what I'd like my life to be, or I've been asking for what would it take to be willing for this or that. I've been asking what would it take. Is it possible that the key to what I've been asking for looks a lot different than I thought it was going to be? Because that's really how this specialty, this class, this possibility of engaging with the spirit world came to me, as I was asking to master receiving. Who the fuck knows what that is? I didn't even know the word receiving until Access Consciousness. I didn't even know what that was. And so, when Shannon O'Hara said, hey, listen, you don't need to master doing. You got that nailed. Like, you need to master receiving. And I was like, okay, universe, help. What is receiving for me? Starting to ask about that. And what showed up in my world, what kind of kept poking me in the eye and pulling my hair and like was being aggressively pulling my attention, was talk to the entities. And I was like, how the F is that going to actually do anything for me? Well, it turns out everything. Because when you're not willing to receive the spirit world, let's just say, when you're not willing to receive, can you receive you? Yes or no? Can you receive money? Yes or no? Can you receive a successful business? Yes or no? I mean, it's this weird thing. It's like, because receiving is receiving. If you're not willing to receive one thing, you're not willing to receive everything almost. Like, you can't selectively receive. You can either not receive or receive. You can either not receive or receive. So what would it take to have receiving? Like, what would it take to explore what you've been refusing to receive, what you have refused to engage with? And what would it take to engage in a way that would transform your entire way of functioning in the world? And part of the class that we did in this last 4 days that we're going to be doing again next weekend is this incredible receiving exercise where, we take all of us through this thing of like lowering your barriers, actually allowing the beings that have your back, that support you. Did you know there's beings that support you? They're there. They're constantly there. Whether you ask for their support or not, like, doesn't matter. They're still there. So I have a choice. I can like lower my barriers and allow them and their presence to like support me, comfort me, be with me, cuddle me, or not. I mean, what would be more fun than not? And then there's these light beings, these mega beings, these other beings that are also always around, all these different kinds of beings that, when I'm willing to receive, can actually like nourish me. Now, listen, I don't know if you've ever been out in nature, but a starving plant is very different than a nourished plant. Have you ever been to a garden where somebody takes great care? The garden is like full and lush and thriving because somebody has taken great care. They have attended to every plant. They have cared for and been present with and engaged with every plant in that garden. And then you've probably seen the gardens, and maybe you were the source of one of these where the plants were like struggling and barely making it because people just forgot to water them or just didn't, Your life is that garden. When you choose to ignore or avoid what you are truly capable of, when you don't choose to be the artist that you are with spirit work, with creating and actualizing a totally different reality, with being what you came here to be in the world, then your garden is like struggling and starving and, trying to thrive rather than thriving. So are you trying to thrive rather than thriving? What energies could you add to your life? What did you come here to be the ambassador of? Did you come here to be the ambassador of limitation and the ambassador of wrongness? Or did you come here to be the ambassador of something greater than that? What drew you to consciousness? What drew you to access consciousness? What did you know when you saw it that you couldn't articulate? And what is it you've been asking for from you? What is it you've been asking to be? What is it you've been asking to change? And if you chose to engage in a different way with all of the molecules of consciousness, including all the beings that support you and all the beings that you could be a gift to, that right now you've maybe been refusing, what would change in your life? What would be different? What would it be like to cultivate the lost art of spirit work? What would it be like to be one of the people that brought that back? What did you come here to create? Did you come here to change this reality or create a different reality? Did you come here to be limited or to be great? And who cares what the fuck great looks like? What would it take to walk around feeling so nourished that nothing could sway you, that money came with ease, that your business grew with ease? Like that level of nourishment, what would it take to really choose that? And I do get that this isn't a conversation for all of you. So I'm not speaking to all of you, but I am speaking to the ones of you that this is for. So I don't know that I have much more to say about it, except for, look at this class again, see if it would create more for you to choose it. I would also really invite you to pick up the book Talk to the Entities by Shannon and to pick up the book Beings of Light. And I would also really encourage you to get more involved and just find out what this is for you. I spent a lot of years with this class and this possibility, like just rejecting it flat out. Like it just wasn't for me. I wasn't that weird. It just didn't seem relevant. It's like I felt like I had the basic tools and that was it. And I did. And that's the thing about the entity tools is that 80% of what you deal with in regards to entities, and I'm not really getting into that in this video, but I have others you can check out. 80% of what you deal with is handled with clearing entities. Okay, that's a pretty good percentage of stuff. 20% though is handled with communicating, receiving, and cooperating. Now you cannot communicate, receive, and cooperate with the spirit world and not be you. You can't do that from your brain. That's not a thinking thing. That's a being, knowing, perceiving, and receiving thing, because beings that don't have bodies communicate with energy. So they're not speaking English or any other language to you. They are speaking and downloading energy. So you've got to be willing to function from and as energy, which is great because being willing and able to function from and as energy makes the rest of your life really work. So anyway, so I thought I had it. I thought I had the gist. I was really like, okay, we got the tools in Foundation, which you do. You get the entity tools in Foundation. Like what else could there be? And I spent the next 5 years like just ignoring it. And honestly, like I'd see the Talk to the Entities facilitators and I was like, such a dick. But when I was really asking to master receiving and this class kept popping up, the thing that really stuck me about it was I realized that once I opened the door, I'd never be able to go back. Once I opened the door to exploring what this was for me, I was never going to be able to fit in ever again. I was going to be weird forever after this. Now, I was already weird. I didn't really get that. But I also knew that if I was like chose to really pursue this, like I wasn't going to be able to shove me back in a box again. Like this was kind of it. This is kind of like, okay, now I'm officially like weird out loud, coming out of the closet, essentially, as a weirdo. But what I've discovered and what I've received is like so much greater. And yes, am I weird? 100%. But I'm weird in that old dictionary way, inspired of fate, spirit, destiny. I'm that kind of weird. Are you? One of the most amazing things that I ever heard Gary Douglas say in a 7-day class is very simple. It was so simple that I think most people missed it. And it was after I asked him something, and I think I was asking him something about like, what did you know that allowed access consciousness to like come through you, because access is so different. And, I was really looking at what would it take for me to be the source of whatever that is for me. And so when I asked him, he just was sitting there and he was just very Gary, very calm. And he said, well, I just got how different I was. And he didn't pause for dramatic effect after he said it. He just said it. I just got how different I was. And I was like, but it struck me because it was so simple. It was so simple, but it was so profound. Like when I really looked at it, I just got how different I was. I was like, man, if I got how different I was, I fight how different I am. I resist how different I am. I try to prove that I'm not different. I try to refuse that I'm different. I pretend that I'm not different. I deny that I'm different. Like I do all those other things. He just got it. Like he was just with it. He just was different. He didn't. So, and it brought me back to my childhood actually, because when I was growing up, I grew up in a cult. So I grew up in the United States, and the religion that I grew up in was not Christianity. It was this blender religion of like New Age and metaphysics and Hinduism and all that kind of stuff. It was weird, but it was what I grew up in. So for me, it was my normal. But one of the things that they always told us was that you got to get that when you go out into the world, guys, you're going to be different. Like just expect to not fit in. So when we went out into the world, I never expected to fit in. I expected to be different. I listened. I was like, okay, I'm going to be different. And sure enough, I was. And when I went to public school, I got thoroughly made fun of. And turns out though, I was like, not only was I different, but I was really different. But it was interesting because I did grow up knowing I was different. I just got it. It was just a fact. It didn't have any charge on it. It didn't make school any easier. I didn't have the tools to deal with everything that I was aware of, but there was an element of it that was pretty easy because I didn't expect anybody to get me. And I didn't try to explain myself to anybody because they were never going to understand the rules and the religion I grew up in because it wasn't like anything they saw. I knew we ate different food, we wore different colors, we had different practices. Like I didn't try to fit in because I knew I didn't. So when Gary said that, I had a little bit of a reference point for that. And I was like, huh. So when you really get that you're different, that's what occurs. And it was in that moment, I was like, I'll have that. I will have that. I will have getting that I'm different. So what's come out of that is like greater than I could possibly imagine. I mean, that's what happens with the universe. It's like you keep asking, how does it get better? And the universe keeps surprising you with it. It does always get better and greater. And the thing for me that I had given up at some point was the nurturing that comes from being connected to, really in communion with all the beings around you. At some point, I'd given that up. I lumped it into religion and lumped it into Christianity and given it up. And when I found this class, it was like coming home because that was actually there for me all the time. I just had called it something else. And so now, like, everything's just easier and greater and lighter and richer. And that's the reality I want to have on the planet. And what do you want to have? Can you create, and this is where this class being so extrapolative is like such a gift, because when I look at, for example, money, it's very, very clear in the How to Become Money workbook that Gary says you cannot create a flow of money from lack. You can only create a flow of money from I am money. I'm control. I'm power. I'm awareness. I am this. And that's true of everything. So it's like, what would give you in a way you don't expect? What would give you more access to being? What would give you more access to perceiving? What would give you more access to receiving? What would give you more access to knowing? And what artist are you that you haven't claimed yet? The shortcut to ease is being and knowing and perceiving and receiving. So what opens that door for you? Who's trying to get your attention that you think maybe just needs to go away, that in fact, if you were willing to receive them, would totally change your reality? I will leave you with that. You are more than welcome at any time to come change your life totally. And if this gifted to you and you know friends that are, I don't know, if you look at this and one of your friends pops into your mind, just share it with them. Tell them, hey, this is weird, but I thought of you. Because guess what? You're weird. And people are wishing you were in their inbox. And that's it for today. So what would it take for us to really, really cultivate being, really, really cultivate knowing, really, really cultivate receiving and perceiving? And what have you been avoiding that you can now choose to engage with and as? What gift are you that you haven't yet received the fortune of? See you guys next week.